Hello, everyone. A very good afternoon. I hope you all had an amazing summer and are all staying safe and healthy. Thanks for joining today. I'm Sairam from ManageEngine, joining from India. So before we start, we thought of bringing you what ManageEngine is all about. So ManageEngine is the enterprise IT management division of Zoho Corporation. We craft the industry's broadest suite of IT management solutions, offering more than 100 products and free tools. Our on-premises and cloud solutions power the IT of over 280,000 companies around the world, including 9 of every 10 Fortune 100 companies. This year, we are celebrating 20 years of ManageEngine, so that's 20 years of delivering value and delighting customers. So, a couple of information before we start the virtual conference. As an attendee, you will see a panel to the right of your screen. It gives you the option of asking us a question, downloading handouts, and participating in the chat. Uh, we'll try our best and answer all the questions in the session itself. However, if we are running short of time, our experts will get back to you with answers via email. Without further ado, we'll start the session. So, this session is going to be about AI ops and how it is going to be a game changer in the IT operations management space in the coming years. Joining the panel discussion are the ManageEngine experts, Gowrisankar, who is the head of product management for ITOM and who has over 15 years of expertise in the ITOM solution space. Our second panelist is Bharanikumar, the head of ITOM marketing with over 15 years of experience in the IT operations management space as well. Over to you, Bharani. You may now introduce our special guest.
Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to welcome you all for this panel discussion. Today, we are going to discuss about AIOps, what AIOps can do for IT operations management, how it can help input and infrastructure and operations teams, and how it can help you provide a better quality of service to your end users. So we have two guests here along with me. So I'd like to invite Carlos Casanova. Hi, Carlos.
There we are.
Great. Hi, Carlos. Welcome to the event.
How's everyone? Apologize for that.
No issues. So I was just giving an intro about you, like what you do at Forrester and all, and glad that you are back. So we will kickstart the panel discussion. So Carlos, we know that IT teams are constantly trying out new technologies, investing in them to uh, to help manage their operations in a better way and provide a good quality of service to the end users. And I see AOps is one such technology where infrastructure and operations team are trying to explore it and find some benefits out of it. But there are a lot of discussions or a lot of definitions about AOps online. So can you explain us what is AOps and what it does?
Sure. And I guess the first thing is for everyone to realize it's not just the technology. Really, it's really a practice that you take some human aspects, some processes, some capabilities, some experiences that we have. You add with that the technological aspect. And when you bring that all together under the umbrella of artificial intelligence and machine learning, that's really where AI ops starts to play. So what you're trying to do, and this is where some folks and organizations really struggle, is in that acceptance that it doesn't take over your operations. What it does is it enhances your human judgment, it enhances your decisions, it enables automation. And when you bring that all under a larger practice or under that umbrella, that's when you start seeing a lot of the proactive capabilities. We work in a very reactive setting, typically most organizations, and we need to move into that proactive setting with the the explosion of cloud and native, cloud native stuff, and the ephemeral entities and all of that. We just can't keep operating in this reactive state. We can't wait for it to fall apart. Somebody screams and then we go and fix it. We really need to start getting ahead of this. And it doesn't mean that we have to go crazy with it and, oh, we're only going to do this if we're going to do it in a predictive manner. And if we're going to just hand it all over to artificial intelligence, that's not at all how it plays out. There are a lot of steps along the way that the artificial intelligence, the machine learning, and just the broader data science capabilities really can enable a tremendous amount of effort, a lot of efficiencies, a lot of effectiveness there. And important to remember is what we learn in the operations side with all these data analytics, with all these technologies and whatnot, they should and could be pushed back as retrospectives to your architecture teams, to your software development teams, to your security teams, to say, we see this in operations, we see this pattern. We don't understand it as operational folks, but you as architects, you as security experts, you may see something in this pattern that tells you, hey, this isn't just a server that's not working right. This isn't just a microservice that kind of went off the rails. There's something else here. And providing that analytical information back to those groups really kind of pushes us forward. And that's why you're frankly seeing such a interest in this right now, because there's so much opportunity. And we haven't even got into the specific use cases or the benefits of technology stacks and that sort of thing. And we, maybe we'll touch on that a little bit.
Okay, great. So it is applying AI on top of the huge amount of sensory data that is collected and empowering the IT team with great insights and to like actionable information, so that they kind of adopt a proactive approach than a reactive approach towards their operations. Great.
Yep.
And so, based on your experience and interactions with your clients, so what are the some of the advantages that AIOps could bring to infrastructure and operations teams?
So some of the obvious ones are your incident response. I was talking about, I just mentioned about sort of getting a little more proactive, but even in traditional incident response, when you think about what happens, something breaks, someone calls in, there's an outage, and then we go and figure out what's going on. We tend to spend a tremendous amount of time on just, when Gowri calls and says, hey, he can't get onto the system, we're like, okay, well, who's Gowri? Where is he? What system is he talking about? Is he working from home? Is he working from an office? So we spend half, 3/4 of our time just figuring out, where should I search? Then once we have that, we say, oh, I can start doing my job now. That's the research. And then we get into like, oh, now I can remedy the situation. So where AIOps really helps in that particular scenario is it can eliminate, it says, I know Gowri works for this line of business. He's working from home today, and here's the 4 systems that he works with. So instantly, by the time that hits the service desk person, your L1, your L2, whoever it is, they've already narrowed down that search capability or that search scope down to something very finite. And they know like, oh, I need to make sure he works in the broker-dealer division. He works with these 3 systems, and he's working from the office today versus from home. So I know it's not external networks, it's not this, it's not that. So that's your incident response that instantly expedites the resolution. What I basically described was your mean time to resolution as well. Mean time to detection. I can see that this issue is arising, and it wasn't just Gowri, it's also Tom and Sally and Bob. So I'm actually detecting this that much faster. So that all kind of plays out, and it really puts us on a more proactive footing, so that as operations, we're not waiting for something to blow up. So maybe it happened with Gowri, but when we see that, we're like, hey, guess what? We have 3 other divisions that are all heading in that same direction of outage. Let's get on top of this much faster, much sooner, and essentially prevent the larger outage. So there's a lot of that. Ideally, that takes you into that next stage, which is the auto remediation. If we see that it's a router issue, if we see that it's something basic, maybe the automation kicks off something from a playbook, from a run book. because it just knows, hey, we know this happens. This happens, not that, not to accept that maybe we never fixed it, to the core, but we know this happens every 3 months. At the beginning of the month, people come back on, we know that this issue happens, and we've just chosen to stick with the known workaround. And guess what? We're going to script it to get auto remediated every time this scenario happens. So there's a long sequence of events there, and that's not the sophisticated ones, right? And that's why, again, as I mentioned earlier, if we can improve all of those scenarios, the MTTR, the MTTD, the incident response, the proactive footing, there's a huge amount of value that, before we get into, oh, we want to now predict some pattern we've never seen before to then go fix it. Yeah, that's ideal. We'd love to see that. But, we've got so much work to do even way before we get ahead of that.
Okay. So Gauri, so as a vendor, like what kind of questions we are getting from our customers regarding AIOps, and how are we supporting them?
Yes, Bharani. So there is a lot of interest towards AIOps. Okay. So we started seeing practical application of AI across all industries and in all use cases. ITOM and IT management is no different. I think there is a saying, right? There was a saying when AIOps was evolving in the initial years, like AI is the glorified form of automation. So I wouldn't mean that it is a disrespect to AI, but still it is one of the important use case to be solved. So, there are a lot of uh, uh, work items that are manually done by the users, right? Any user would be happy if we can automate the workflows and reduce the time spent in repeated and time consuming tasks. So if we can identify those challenges, right, and if you apply some sort of AIOps or any normal automation, we would be able to delight our customers. So let me give you an example in our case. I think you know about Op Manager. Maybe I'll introduce Op Manager to the audience. It's our network monitoring tool, right? So it has a different set of monitors inside the Op Manager, right? So they have threshold configuration for all those metrics. So in the initial years, we spend a lot of time in communicating with hardware and software vendors like Cisco and Microsoft. Tried to have some predefined thresholds for few metrics. Uh, uh, so we thought it would help the customers to reduce the manual configuration. We brought that and we implemented the change in the product. But when that was introduced, we expected all the customers would like it, but there was some feedback like, no, you are alerting unnecessarily. My environment is totally different and you're alerting with values. My environment is not operating in such values. So we understood that every environment is unique, right? You cannot have a common threshold for all metrics, for all monitors. So we thought of automating it. Automation in the sense we would talk to our customers and ask them to find the baseline. Say you monitor it for a month, find the base value, a baseline of average value, and then set a threshold on top of it. But still, it would need a manual effort. So at that time, AIOps came in handy. So we introduced AIOps. What that will do is it will go through the history of data, 3 or 4 weeks or 2 months of data. It will go through it and identify the pattern, the trends and the seasonality, and it was able to set a threshold for each and every hour. So we call that as adaptive threshold. So it reduced the manual effort. So initially, before this adaptive threshold was introduced, we used to spend a lot of time. Customers would spend around 6 hours to 2 days based on the number of monitors for configuring this. But once this was introduced, it reduced to none. So this is one of the interesting use cases that we worked. There are other use cases like capacity planning and even correlation, etc. But this one holds good because it immediately reduced the manual effort. So this is one such example, Bharani. Maybe Carlos could do more based on his integrations or interactions with other prospects and clients. Over to you, Carlos.
Yeah, I mean that's a great example of again the more simple approaches that save tremendous amounts of time. And again, we don't want to. A lot of times we just get caught up with the big shiny object, and we don't realize how much value there can be there. Yeah, the adaptive thresholding or dynamic thresholding is really key, because what it's telling us is we know what we know. And in those cases, we're going to set this threshold of whatever it is, a latency or whatever. But the reality, like you pointed out, there may be only one out of the 500 entities that really need to have that adaptive cycle, but you don't know which one it is, and you don't know what that should be. So the amount of effort and energy that you'd have to apply to identify that is tremendous, and you're going to have to constantly be applying it, and it's just not realistic. Whereas these tools can do it, like you said, in essentially no time. They can see that pattern, they can present it to you, and then you can decide if you want to follow it or not. Or you can say, yes, we're going to go with this adaptive approach, because it will also modify itself as the seasons change, as the environments change. You bring in, you do a new acquisition, and guess what? Are you going to go back now and modify all of your monitoring? Well, you don't know which ones you need to. You don't know what that new population is. So again, the adaptive or the dynamic approach is key. But as far as some other scenarios too, I mean, there's again just some basic ones. Say for example, there's failed login attempts, and you're going through multi-factor authentication. You can detect that, automatically route. And some of these tools do this automatically internally themselves, the MFA type tools. But if you're doing transaction monitoring or tracing, you can identify this. You can route that person to maybe a self-service portal instead of to the service desk. You can do that. If your environment has certain areas that have shared resources, and there's 3 systems on there, and one of them, for whatever reason, on this random basis, decides to start consuming all of the resource. These tools can detect that and say, hey, before systems 2 and 3 start being negatively impacted, we can move those transactions to another resource, let that keep going normally and not be impacted, while that first one that was consuming, because maybe it's doing some, someone set off some report that has a bunch of joins and unions or whatever, and it's just destroying the back-end database or some router along the way. You can move those other transactions elsewhere until that one kind of resolves itself, and then bring them back. And that's all things that historically we would have had multiple incident tickets opened up. We would have been chasing ourselves for an hour. And by the time we came back to it, we'd be looking at it like it's all resolved and we don't know what happened. And it would happen again. And then it would happen again. And during all that time, we've wasted tremendous amounts of time and resources. And guess what? That's time taken away from other things that needed to get done, because we were scrambling to chase something that half hour later was gone. And then we do a postmortem and there's no record of it, and we wasted more time, and we never really resolve it at its core. And these tools can do that, in real time. And even if you're not comfortable with an automated remediation, it can flag it for you and say, hey, Gowri, this is what's going on. Do you want me to move these transactions, or do you want me to leave them? Here's what's going to happen. That suggestive capability. I mean, these are all, there's all sorts of capabilities there. Whether they're known or unknown, you can structure it so that it keeps the man in the middle, right? And it provides you that opportunity to act on it. Or if you're comfortable with it, just letting it fly and doing its own thing.
Okay, these are some good insights, Carlos and Gowri. And so there are a lot of IT shops that are following a traditional approach in terms of operations and monitoring and management. And so these kind of IT shops, if they want to adopt AIOps, what are some of the factors that they should consider? And is there any framework that you can suggest?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Gowri, and I've been kind of touching on a lot of the scenarios that organizations have to deal with, right? And these probably are not foreign to anyone. There's two main things that we really need to think about. One, you can't remain still. You can't say, hey, I'm not sure about AI ops, so I'm going to just stay where I am. Because the reality is, all of your peers, your competitors, the other organizations that you're competing against, they're not. We've got studies, here at Forrester that show, 70, 80% of organizations are investing in insight type technologies, artificial intelligence technologies and platforms, machine learning. They're doing that all for one thing, is observable insights. And can I take that next step into remediation? But the amount of money that's being invested today on these platforms is just incredible. Because and I kind of alluded to this earlier, it also enables certain simplicity in your environment. Because of a lot of these tools, they can ingest data, and I think you mentioned it at the beginning, they can ingest data from a whole host of sources, normalize it, standardize it, kind of just coalesce it all into one bundle, and present you with a composite view of your environment, where you don't have to go to 6 different monitoring tools, 6 different dashboards, and then your experience is like, oh, I think these 3 things are connected. So a lot of these tools, they can bring all those sources together and do that. But culturally is one of your biggest hurdles still, because it is a practice. It's not just, we're not just implementing a discovery tool. This is a larger practice. It's going to have organizational disruption. It's part of your digital transformation efforts. And you really need to look at, who are the groups that are doing the monitoring? Who are the groups that are doing the operations? How do they work together now with this common and centralized tool set? Because it's not, again, just roll out the tool and here you go. You do have to take that into account. So, so when you tackle that, and we've touched on this, look at the 5, 10 easy things. We know that this router has this issue. We have a run book that resolves it, step 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Look at that one, identify it, confirm you're comfortable with it, and then string that together for a full automation. And Gowri kind of alluded to this, was take that work off of someone's plate that is just routine, mundane, repetitive tasks. Take it off their plate, allow them to get onto the work that you're paying them for, frankly. Right? You want them to actually use their brains and think through complex issues, not just, hey, I need you, every time you see blue, click 1, 2, 3, 4. That's just not a good use of money. It's not a good use of time. And frankly, we see this in this day and age, especially with Great Resignation and other things. People want to feel that their work is valued, and telling them to just follow step 1, 2, 3, and 4 and not think is just not where they want to be. So we can alleviate that workload from the simple things and really put them in positions to grow and be more productive and more value driven there.
Okay. And see, when implementing AIOps, so they could hit a lot of roadblocks. And what kind of challenges you think that these kind of organizations might face when they try to adopt or implement AIOps?
Yeah, and I didn't mention it before. You asked about a framework. I mean, this spring, I released the reference architecture to at least point out the 18 different capability areas that need to be focused on. And each organization has to evaluate where they are in the maturity level for each of those. And that feeds into the question just asked is, what are the challenges? Well, when you look at it, and I just said 18 different capability areas, that's a big lift. That's a heavy lift for organizations. So you need to be careful when you look at that. Do you have the investment of budget to go down that path in full, or do you want to tackle it one capability at a time. Do you have skill sets? What's going to happen? We've been talking about taking some of the easy tasks away from folks. Not taking them away, but just like replacing those with, hey, we need you to do these things that are more sophisticated. But we have to ask ourselves, are our resources, our people, skilled to do that? Maybe not. So we need to say, okay, we need to provide training around data science analytics. And it doesn't mean that they're going to become PhDs in Bayesian analysis. I'm not saying that. But they need to be provided that training to understand basic mathematical models and understand patterns and trends, again, at a basic level, but more than they are today. So the skill set is an issue that we need to ask ourselves, are we ready for that, when we take the simple tasks away? And then some of the ROI comes back quickly. And when it does, we all know leadership loves it. And they're like, hey, that investment was great, right? Things usually aren't that simple in life. It takes a little while. And Gary, I think you mentioned, 2-3 weeks sometimes for these algorithms to adapt and adjust. Yeah. On certain things, it's really quick. In other things, it takes a little longer. If you've got a very chaotic environment, it's going to take a lot longer to figure out, hey, I see things all over the board. And maybe the pattern that presents itself is over a 3-month period or is over a 4-week period. So you need to see multiple cycles. In other cases, it's going to pick up some of the smaller things. And that's why I keep coming back to this. Let's focus on the simple ones. The larger ones will come about, but we need to get that value out early. But I'll wrap up this question with, the biggest issue that we probably have is trust. It's trust in the AI. It's transparency in what is that AI doing? What is that machine learning doing? I've seen iRobot and Will Smith one too many times. I'm scared of it. It's going to take over the world. So, that's probably the biggest thing. So I think from the vendor side, that's something that, obviously always have to work with the client so that they're comfortable with. We're not going to do anything that you wouldn't have done. We're just, again, back to enhanced human judgment. We're going to present it to you. We're going to let you put that, do that final click. Once you're comfortable, after you've seen it 50 times, 100 times, you say, okay, you know what? Just tell me you did it. And then a month later, like, I'm good, just document it somewhere that you did it. But, as an end organization, you need to go through that maturity, that mental stepwise, evolution to say, I don't really trust it, so let me do the last click. I trust it, but I'm just not sure I'm ready to turn it over. And I don't have time for this. Can you please just do it and just let me know you did? And everyone kind of is going to do their own thing. I've seen some organizations take months. I've seen others on certain topics take days and weeks. And again, that's for every organization, but the steps are the same. If you're not like totally, and I don't recommend that you just turn over the keys and just let it run wild either. That's, that's when you end up, looking for new jobs, right? So, you take that step and you slowly mature, and as your level of comfort and trust and the transparency is there, you keep taking on more stuff, and you go as far as you're comfortable with going. You don't have to go all the way to the end.
Okay. So yeah, the lack of trust on AI is one critical thing. I'm going to put that question to Gauri later. And regarding the challenges, I want to ask you this question. Like, see, I was talking to one of our customers a few days back, and he said that culturally they are not very much data driven. And how do you see that as a challenge?
It's huge. I mean, it's hard to hear, because the reality is we are data driven. Our whole world is data driven right now. So if you're not comfortable with it, you better become comfortable pretty quickly. There's no avoiding this. It's not, when you look at, I think the pandemic really kind of surfaced a lot of this, right? I think we saw organizations that we believed were very old school brick and mortar, And heading into the pandemic, we're like, oh, they're gonna collapse. They're gonna get taken over by, these online companies. And some of these retail companies that were brick and mortar and didn't have a great presence online are just exploding. They're doing spectacular, because they took that challenge head on and said, either we die, we just close our doors forever, or we learn how to deal with this. And they jumped right in and they said, okay, we have to do this. Interestingly enough, I think the companies that struggled the most were the ones that were sort of in the middle. They were kind of going there, but architecturally, they could not scale to the speed. I mean, I was working with a client at one point, right at the beginning of the pandemic, small medical surgery organization. They're not small. I mean, they're fairly decent size, but compared to like global financial services, they're small. But they went from 200 individuals working remote on a part-time basis here and there to almost 2,000 remote full-time. Their network infrastructure couldn't handle it. Their VPNs couldn't handle it. Nothing could handle it. And their tech support sure couldn't handle the 3 million calls. And and they said, okay, well, we have to do this and we have to figure it out. But that's where some of these tools will help them, right? It's not, Gary, back to your earlier point, they didn't have to have John, the server administrator, looking at all these tools, or all these monitoring tools. They're like, hey, this is, we're going to add 50 new servers to our gateways, or we're going to do whatever, and we're going to spin up more VMs. And guess what? They're going to have the same exact image, same monitoring characteristics, and then they will settle into their own pattern. And from there, all I have to do is look at the dashboard to make sure that this cluster of 5 is behaving the way I expect it. This cluster of 20 is behaving the way I expect it. And I don't have to go in, next week and modify it again. So to that client, it's sometimes a hard statement to make, but it's like, you have no choice. You have no choice. I mean, because if you don't start moving in this direction, and again, I'm not saying that you have to be the extreme, but you have to move in that direction because everyone else is. Yeah, I mentioned earlier the statistics, the metrics from our survey, 80% plus or minus are investing in these technologies. And if you're in that 20%, that's not good. It's just, I look at it as that's opportunity for growth in my market share because I am moving. Your market share is going to be mine if you don't move in that direction. So there really isn't a choice. But again, it doesn't mean you have to be reckless, but you have to take at least a step in that direction.
Okay, great. So Gauri, as a vendor, how are we going to, what's our plan to handle these kind of challenges with regarding to AIOps?
Yes, Bharani. Carlos has nicely explained on the culture and the skill set problems. And, from the understanding that I have with the interactions with the customers, AIOps has become a commodity rather than a luxury, right? So till few years ago, AIOps was offered only by a few technology companies, right? So they were giving dedicated platforms for AIOps. They were not the core ITOM or ITAM or SIEM solutions. They offered only the AIOps platform. They expected the core solutions to integrate with them and share the events, alarms, and other details to the platform so that they could do the correlation and other insights and recommendations based on the data. But they're not cheap solutions. Even only enterprises can go into that kind of model. Even when enterprises use that solutions, they may or may not be able to solve all their use cases, right? So some enterprises, big customers, started investing their resources in AIOps. They tried to build their own AIOps team, but it may not be possible for all. Even then, even if they spend their time and effort on it, they may not be able to solve all their use cases, right? So it would need a massive investment, and it won't be affordable for all. So the ideal option that I would suggest, it may not be applicable for all, but if you're having a cost constraint or budget constraint, I would suggest them to opt for solutions. They offer better AIOps capabilities within their product. It may not be the one which covers everything, but they may be good at uh, ITSM, they may be good at security, SIEM, or ITOM like us, right? So better look for those products and try to solve the simple use cases, simple problems, simple challenges with the help of AIOps. Then you can, develop more capabilities on top of it. So we at ManageEngine offer AI-based insights and recommendations in the core product itself. You don't need to spend a fortune to have this functionality. It is not even an add-on, or it is not even available in the higher editions. It is available in the base edition itself. So this way, businesses can reduce the capex and opex and have better return of investment.
Okay.
And if I could just add one thing to that, Gowri,
Yeah.
that's actually an area that that really surfaced out of the NowTech that I did earlier this year, is the perspective. And I referenced the reference architecture, the AIOps reference architecture that was released earlier this year as well. But the perspective on AIOps and how you approach it can be very different. It can be very technology centric, sort of that bottom up, heavy monitoring and technologically focused, or the way you were just describing, sort of that top down perspective, which is process oriented and process centric, which again, there is no right and wrong. It's what fits your organization best at that moment in time. And if you're very mature on your processes, ITOM, ITSM, or what have you, and that's all you can afford today, then you do that. You advance that. You still work towards better insights, and maybe 3 years later you revisit it and invest more on the bottom end for monitoring and whatnot. That's fine, but you can still move forward. And I guess I love how you kind of phrase that. You need to do something, and taking that process centric approach for some organizations, that's the most cost effective way. Is let's beef that up. Let's really supplement these human decisions with tools that we have in place, with more AI, with more ML. Let's enhance their judgments. Let's make their lives easier, while we know we can't do the other part that might be cost prohibitive.
Yeah, very true, Carlos. Yeah. So Gauri, again, I want to ask you a question. So earlier, Carlos was mentioned about the lack of trust or transparency that AI brings. So as a vendor, how are we bridging this? See, AI is suggesting some changes, or it automatically remediates or something, but it was the IT admin who actually made the change or implemented that model in the first place. So what kind of solutions you think will help to bring this transparency or the trust factor here?
Yes, Bharani. Yeah. Even now we see a lot of memes and jokes in the internet, right, about AIOps and how it is going to predict the correct value with the number of attempts, right? So still that is a joke. So I would say the lack of trust, or the explainability, the predictability, all these, there are few factors towards it. So one is the inability to predict the correct value due to insufficient historical data. I already mentioned. Carlos also said that it may or may some cases within 3 weeks you will be able to do it. Otherwise, in some complex scenarios, it would take more than 6 months, right? So based on the use case, you need to present historical data to the ML and AI system so that it would understand the pattern, the trend and seasonality, and it would provide better suggestions and insights. So even in adaptive threshold, as I mentioned, we didn't enable the alerting using adaptive threshold immediately after installation. So we told the customers to wait for 4 months, 4 weeks, and then the system started alerting on it. Because within 4 weeks, we were able to get the pattern out of it. So I would say historical data would be one of the main point. Okay, and the other point I would like to mention is the human in the loop. Say it is nothing but the feedback mechanism for the AI engine to relearn, right? So if the system is going to alert any false positives, then if the user can interact with the system and give some feedback so that it relearns in it adopts a better mathematical model, and it will start predicting the correct values. So human in the loop is still a better option. So not even for this. So we have some functionalities like workflows that could be used in auto remediation, right? Say there are some alerts coming from the system, and workflows can trigger some changes in the end device so that the issue will be automatically resolved. But the problem is we do not know whether the AI is going to fix the correct problem, because we are allowing the system to touch the configurations of a network device. So we may not be very sure. So we have to have a human in the loop to go through that and have some criteria based conditions, which then triggers the remediation script. So that would also be one of the options. The other option would be I would say the major issue I see from the third-party AIOps tools is the lack of context. Okay, just by ingesting all the data, not all the data, events and alerts into the system, that AIOps tool may not be able to give proper, suggestions and insights, because the system may or may not know the context, right? Say, for example, you have a system, so you have a business service, and that has network devices, servers, and the microservices, containers. They spread across on-premise, cloud, and everything, right? So if we have this context details, and if you are going to apply AIOps on top of it, then you will get better meaningful suggestions from AIOps. If that context is not there, then it won't be that useful, and we may not be able to solve the problems quickly. So exactly for this purpose, in our monitoring tool, we have this discovery and topology mapping. So with that help of the feature, we were able to build the relationship between the objects, right? So instead of correlating the alarms and events from 1,000 devices, which may or may not be related to it, right? But with the help of it, we were able to get the scope. So I'm going to apply this for the 50 objects, which are which constitute the business service. So I'll apply on top of it, and I'll identify what are all the anomalies, what are all the abnormalities with those 50 objects, and then I'll find the root cause. So in that way, we were able to give better suggestions. So I would say the historical data, then the option for human in the loop, and the context with the help of discovery and topology mapping features would help solving the lack of trust issues with AIOps.
Okay, so a little guidance from a human to set the context right will kind of bring the trust factor that we are discussing here. Okay.
Yeah, and
So
I Gowri, I think that the key word there is context, right? That's ultimately where the value comes in, because we've been able to do some of the more discrete capabilities for many years, but knowing why, and the how, we knew. If you see this, you do that. Why are we doing this, and why are we doing it now versus waiting 5 minutes? Why are we doing that under these circumstances and not those circumstances? That context is really the secret sauce. And the better we can get there, in either the tool helping with that, providing context, the better that the individual ultimately pulling the trigger on that will do. Those decisions will only get better with better context.
So Carlos, so earlier you were mentioning that 80% of organizations are trying to adopt AIOps in their IT. So, is it the small or medium or large enterprise? Do you have any split? Like, how is the adoption across these various enterprises, like small, medium, and large?
The answer is yes. Yes, they are. And the 80%, again, they're tackling it, and this kind of gets into the small, medium, and large. They're tackling it in different ways, right? Because every organization, and Gary, you were talking about, the cost in getting into, the cost to entry here from a client perspective, not from a vendor perspective. But for some organizations, maybe a small organization, maybe they don't have a very sophisticated monitoring space. They don't have a sophisticated NOC, network operations center. Maybe they haven't really invested in over the years in their ITOM or ITSM space. So maybe they come at it and look at it and say, yes, this is expensive, but if we get this one tool centralized, we can address these 5 different areas. Another organization that maybe is, small said, like, we've spent so much money on our service management stuff. We just need somebody to help us get that next step. And a lot of that same rationale and mentality goes in with a lot of these organizations. The big, mega global organizations, they've invested a tremendous amount in monitoring already. They've probably already invested a tremendous amount in their ITOM and ITSM space already as well. So some of them might be like, hey, we were, our licensing and our contracting and our monitoring, our core monitoring tool is ending. So let's go in that direction. Or our licensing and contracting is ending on our service management side. Let's start in that direction. But if we boil this down to why are we doing this? Why are organizations doing this? And that is, we need better insights. Our environments are getting more complex. We need to respond more quickly, and we need to know what do we do when it all goes off the rails. That's common. Small, medium, large, extra large, super extra large, it doesn't matter, right? So they all want that insight. It's really more a matter of how are they getting there? Are they taking out of like I said, the reference architecture, are they taking it, 3 of the 18 capabilities? Are they taking 15 out of those capabilities? Are they saying some of these are okay and some of these aren't? One area we haven't touched on all that much yet, and I know we're heading into the question and answer, but a question came through was, how does AIOps help in any way with security? AIOps is our top priority right now, but how does it help with security? And this is a very interesting and tricky area. In some cases, the reason organizations are looking at AIOps was because they had a security issue. And maybe their security area isn't that sophisticated. Gowri, you talked about SIEM, the SIEM area. There's a lot of similarities. There's a lot of overlap between when you start at the bottom in terms of the monitoring, the detection, and then when it splits into the actioning of that data, that's where it drastically changes in terms of network operations, security operations. But that bottom piece is, I don't want to say completely overlapping, but there's a massive amount of overlap there. I'm actually working with some of my colleagues on trying to identify what that overlap is so that we can provide some guidance to say, hey, we know we need to know all of our entities, our servers, our ephemerals, our microservices, our infrastructure, yada, yada, all that stuff. Well, we both need to know that. Okay, good. We both need to know the relationships between them. Yep. I need to know more details around these vulnerabilities per industry definition. I'm like, I'm not really interested in that. But up until you get to that point, it's very, very similar. And to loop back on your context issue, Gowri, on the security side, they don't tend to, and I spent several years on the security side, way back in my career. They don't tend to always be looking at the contextual side of it from a business perspective, where, hey, we are in a seasonal cycle. We expect higher traffic. On the security side, they just see higher traffic. Maybe we need to investigate it. On our side, on the NOC side, we're like, no, it's Friday. It's Black Friday. I expect more. which also ties into your, is it a manual or an adaptive threshold? None of this becomes discrete. That's been our challenge, right? Everything is discrete, which is why we didn't have the insights. But now when you glue this all together and we say, hey, if the operations side can provide the security side with that context, that remediation of a potential breach or a threat is even more enhanced in terms of their decisioning. And on our side, if we recognize early or are told early, hey, these scenarios are actually security related, not operationally related, we can alert much sooner. So there is a relationship there. There is also a massive cultural chasm today that there are separations of duties. And that's why you see most organizations with almost identical platforms, and one of them is one vendor and one of them is another vendor, because this one markets as security and that one markets as operations. But Ray, to your question, is it similar? Yes, it's incredibly similar. There's nuances, don't get me wrong, and timing and all of that is obviously an issue, but there's a massive overlap, and I think it's just going to take a little while longer before organizationally that the C-levels look at their bills and say, why am I paying twice for this? Can we kind of cut out some of that bottom end and save a tremendous amount of money and just resources, because the SOC has as many people on it as the NOC, and they're doing the same thing. They're looking at this pattern, they're looking at this trend. Gowri, it sounds like you've experienced this. So maybe you want to jump in there and kind of elaborate a little bit more.
So this is based on the experience we had with the tools that we offer in ManageEngine, Carlos. So we have SIEM tools, we have the help desk ITM tools, and also the op manager monitoring end of tools, right? So the SIs who use these products, they come and ask, say, I need to have a common platform so that these tools can integrate and give all the alarms to one place where it can give everything, right? So a complete insight about my whole environment, not just monitoring, not just security. So the requests are coming in like that. So we also started working on kind of a platform combining all these solutions together. And we will be offering AIOps and better visibility and more data storage for the tons of data that comes from multiple tools, right? So, and offer insights in the common platform. That is also one of the plans we have.
Okay. Great insights, Gowri and Carlos. So Carlos, we have been discussing about the current scenarios in AIOps. Okay, so I want to jump into the future. Like, how do you see AIOps in the future, and what kind of how it can evolve, and what kind of benefits will it bring to the operations teams?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've probably hit on all the sort of moving parts here, right? But I think what we need to look at is sort of take a step back on what AIOps is and kind of where it's going, and look at it more from what does modern operations look like in a year, 2 years, 3 years? Can it be, if you think of the hierarchy, most of our activities are predominantly manual. Well, that we know that can't continue. So we need to get into that AI assisted tier. So that goes up one level. But we also know that we have organizations that are very sophisticated in their CI/CD pipelines and DevOps and SRE. Well, we already know that they're pretty efficient in moving from development out through production and maintaining that. So it needs to support that. You have other organizations that are very product centric. So everything they do is built around that concept of that, that service model and that, that tree, the hierarchical tree and everything. So it has to do that. So modern operations going forward has to account for all of that, because organizations are not going to move everything away from manual. That's just not the reality. To your small, medium, large, question earlier, there's going to be aspects of an organization that are 1990, because that's just the way it is. While a different division is full microservice, cloud native, and pushing that envelope over there. So I think the future is that AI ops, in a sense, doesn't exist as a standalone concept. It's just what we do. It's just that is what ITOM and ITSM and monitoring and kind of is. We need insights, and we've added data science to it in the form of AI and ML, and that's just what we do. We don't do, AI ops. We just do observability. We provide insights. We get ahead of things. We act more proactively. We've established 10% of our operations that is very predictive in nature to address certain things that we see on a pretty regular basis, or proactive. But as far as like where we go, I kind of see it almost as it fading away. When you think of AI on its own, not in AI ops, but when you think about AI 5 years ago, it was, wow. I got a better example. If we go back, and I'm aging myself here, so maybe it was before some of you are born, but when you think of, oh, this internet thing is coming out, what do we do with this, right? Most organizations that I was consulting to at the time, they all set up whole divisions. This is our internet division. This is our regular division, right? And it was 3-4 years before that division no longer existed. We just operate. So there is no longer an internet division. And I kind of see AIOps heading in that same direction. It just becomes what we do. This is how we provide insights. Right now, we provide insights in a very slow, methodical, reactive, poor, usually useless way. And we need to move into a much more, hey, we just saw this happen. Here it is. Or we are seeing this happen. You need to get on top of this right now. And I think that's just the natural progression where we have to get to.
Okay, great points, Carlos. So with this, we have come to the end of the panel discussion. So to summarize, I would say like we discussed points that AI brings a lot of insights into the operation so that IT teams can be more proactive than reactive, take informed decisions, and reduce MTTR. And the context is very necessary in AI to see success. And AIOps is not a luxury; it's a necessity.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So now we can take up some questions from the audience. And so, audience, you have any questions? You can use the question mark icon that you can see on the right panel. Probably you can post some questions to Carlos and Gauri.
I'd like to take this the question from Nikki, right? So it's about can ManageEngine auto-populate CMDB, right? We partially do right now. Say, as I already mentioned, we have the discovery and the topology mapping, right? So we know how the CAs are interconnected with each other. So it's not just the objects within the LAN, could be the devices, or could be the VMs in the cloud, or containers, microservices, and everything, right? So we started with layer 2 discovery and the hierarchy of devices like vCenter, ESX host, and VMs, and the WLC controllers and the access points below it. So these are all the hierarchy devices, and the network mapping, these we already populate with our own Service Desk Plus. It has a CMDB module. We populate that. It periodically scans and updates the latest relationship between the objects. So our next aim is to integrate that with Applications Manager module, the one that talks to Azure, AWS, and other private cloud objects, and try to get the relationship between applications running in the cloud, microservices, containers, and everything. So we are going to build a common relationship DB within ITOM. So it will be useful for us to do AIOps related root cause analysis. And similarly, we will pass on this information to CMDB. CMDB can do the better impact analysis and other use cases in ITAL side. Yeah, I think what's the next question?
I think this one is yours as well, Gowri.
Yeah, one of the things that has always made ManageEngine a good choice. Okay, so it's not actually a question. So they say that ManageEngine is able to give 90% of the way there. So thanks for that, Douglas. I think there's no question there.
Well, I think at the very bottom, how do you view the value add of adding more AI versus maintaining value?
All right. So I didn't scroll. Okay.
Yeah, the very last sentence. Yeah. I mean, I can speak to it in the generic sense. In the generic sense, there's going to be this constant improvement, or this continual improvement. And what you want to do is really identify, first of all, do you have good enough quality data and inputs into your machine learning? If you don't have that, we've talked on multiple occasions about the adaptive thresholds and whatnot, but essentially what's going on is the data going into this machinery has to be of good enough quality to then be able to infer and extrapolate different decisions, different recommendations. So do you add more AI to it depends on what your scenario is. Do you have good enough data to feed it so that you can get something out? If you don't, then no, it really doesn't make a lot of sense. Is your environment so dynamic and so fast-paced that you have no choice but to go with AI versus more of a manually assessed kind of environment? So there's a few different dynamics there that really kind of play into it, but you should be looking at it to at least evaluate, how much more do I go? Am I comfortable with that decisioning from AI? Am I going to invest this, but then I'm still going to just manually override it all the time? And so it's not, unfortunately, it's not I think a clear-cut answer, but it's something that you need to keep dipping your toes into and edging forward with, and you'll find the appropriate scenarios to apply more AI to. In other scenarios, they're like, yeah, that one's probably not the best to apply to.
All right. Okay. I think we can move on to the next one.
So as mentioned, moving towards AI is inevitable, though it's very challenging for organizations that don't have mature processes. For example, when an IT team doesn't have a problem management aligned to the best practice guidelines, how can they leverage AIOps? Should they first improve processes before being able to build algorithms? I would say no. You can still move forward. In a sense, a lot of the tools will help. If you don't have a formal problem management system or process, then yes, it's going to be a little bit more erratic. But the concept of root cause analysis is not new, and someone is doing it anyway. Whether it's a formal process or not, someone is trying to get to root cause. Now, do you turn that around into an official ticket? Do you turn that around into a formal workaround? Do you turn that around into a known error? Maybe, maybe not. But those tasks that I just listed out, or those concepts that I listed out, are happening no matter whether you have a formal problem management process in place or not. And will AIOps help you? Absolutely. Because if you go back to the very beginning, when I talked about the search, research, and action, if it narrows down your world scope down to this is only happening in this region of the world, this line of business within that region, and only within these two systems, you've done 3/4 of your problem management and root cause analysis work already. You've narrowed that all down. Now, John, who's sitting there stuck with trying to figure out how do we resolve this, they've already been pointed in that direction, much further than if they were starting from scratch. And in a sense, you could probably leverage these technologies and capabilities to actually accelerate the implementation of a problem management process, because part of the reason that a lot of organizations don't do it is because the overhead cost, resources and tools to do that, and then addressing one root cause analysis issue a month, because it takes so much energy. So you might be able to go from nothing to a pretty sophisticated root cause analysis capability pretty quickly with a lot of these tools. Gowri, would you agree? Would you add anything else to that?
Yeah, I agree with that, Carlos. Nothing to add from my side. Yeah.
I think that was the last one.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carlos, Gauri, and Bharani. That was an insightful session where you discussed why AIOps is the need of the hour in today's enterprises. Once again, thank you for joining us today, Carlos. It was a pleasure having you here. For our next session, joining us today is Sharath Babu, who is a product specialist from our ManageEngine ITOM team. He will be sharing how organizations, both big and small, can leverage AI ops to overcome modern operational challenges. Over to you, Sharath. You may now share the screen.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. And I'm extremely glad that we are connected today to talk about leveraging AI ops to overcome these modern operational challenges. I would take another 45-50 minutes of all of your time to discuss about how this AI ops can be, best leveraged with all these operational challenges. And I just take this moment to introduce myself, Sharath, a senior product consultant with ManageEngine ITOM suite of products. First, let me take a quick minute to talk about the agenda for today. So we would be discussing about the need for the digital business transformations, why there is a business digital transformation required, what is the need, how that is being emerged, what was the real need of having a business digital transformations. We would then talk about the role of IT in achieving these key strategic outcomes. And then we would talk about the challenges faced by the IT organizations. We will also talk about the keys to obtain those critical insights from multiple various distributed systems. We will also be able to talk about the sample architecture on how this full stack visibility can be achieved into your IT operations. And I would be very glad about what ManageEngine's IT operation management suite of solutions is available for your simplified IT management. And that's what we would talk about for the next some time. So to begin with, why there is a need for digital business transformations is the first question. People everywhere talking about digital transformation, especially post-pandemic. So why is there a need for that? Throughout the globe, almost about 95% of organizations, CEOs from our global organizations says that there is a need which you have to see forward to adapt the digital first strategies. And most of the companies are already executing their plans, already in their paths. But let us see why there is a need for digital first strategy in the first place. So all of us here are talking about customer first experience. The customer first strategy is something which all of the organizations are putting forward at the first place. So why is there is a need for the customer first approach? Because they wanted to provide the best experience for their customers, the end users who use their business service. So if we are about to gauge how the customer happiness quotient is, definitely there needs to be some new digital transformation technologies which need to be adopted by the organizations to achieve the same for the better of their business. So that's point one. We wanted to look forward. The organizations are looking forward for the digital transformations. And unlike the traditional method, now people are not working from offices. We all know that post-pandemic, we started to work from anywhere. Even we're talking about branch of one, like even one, only one, we sit in our home, and that becomes the branch of our own organization. The entire network is different, which connects to the organization. And apart from that, as we are talking about, the customer experience is quite very, very important to look forward to. So even nowadays, when we try to be in any of our websites, any of the service which you wanted to look forward for, say, for example, you wanted to book your tickets for a vacation, you try to get into any of your websites. And if that experience on the website is not that great as you expect, instantly you move on to the next website, because there are lots and lots of other competitors in the globe. So it's that the customer experience is very much important. So people are like very much focused towards the digital transformations. Organizations are much more focused, and that's the need of the hour. So how are we supposed to take this into account? Let's see what are the factors that drive these transformations among these big enterprises in this particular year. 48% of people says use the tech to drive the revenue. We all know that. Even Carlos was discussing just a few minutes back about how data is important, how much of data is flowing into your organization. I would personally say that data is the next fuel, because so much of data is ready within the organization. We are about to just make sure the data is processed properly, and then convert them into the better insights, because all of them nowadays marching towards the data driven culture. So even Carlos was talking about, if you're not ready to adopt those data driven cultures, I think we better be comfortable in getting that adapted. So that's how the organization today are. And that's what 48% of the organizations throughout the globe says: use the tech, use the respective data to drive the revenue. When we talk about the revenue, the rest of the things are also included in that. The reputation of the company, the branding value of the company, and much more is also included when we talk about the revenues. 37% of the people says accelerating the shift to the cloud. Absolutely, yes. Post-pandemic, we started to work from multiple places. Like anywhere we wish to work from, we started to connect to the organization data. It's unlike the traditional only method of connecting to the organizational data via VPN. We also look forward to most of the cloud applications. That was real easy for all of our employees, users to get connected to have the business up and running. Because there are lots and lots of advantages when we move out in the cloud. Like we do not want to worry about scaling the resources, thinking about the hardware, thinking about the requirement of the space, and much more. There are lots and lots of advantages of getting towards the cloud, as all of you know. So that's another factor which drives these transformation ideologies right in this year. And there are like 33% of organizations says that it can help improve those tech staff in their organizations. How could new technologies, new methodologies would improve their tech staff? Say we are talking today about AIOps. AIOps would definitely help. One or the other way to improve the knowledge of the technical staff we have got in the organization. Say you have a help desk team, and the help desk team is regularly receiving tickets in their bin, and then they wanted to go take up that, troubleshoot, fix that particular issue. Instantly, when there is a ticket dropping in the bin of a technician, what if there is a knowledge base article automatically assigned with the help of the AIOps, which is there in place of your organization? If a knowledge base article is assigned as a recommendation or as a solution, as a suggestion for the technical staff, definitely the SLA would be closed real soon. The first response quality would also be definitely much more greater. And these are some of the material where the technical staff can definitely be improved with. And anywhere we talk about, definitely the cost would get into the picture. So reducing the IT cost, yes, because the hiring model itself has changed because of the new technologies coming up. So, and we do not want to rely much more on IT devices and things like that because of cloud we were talking about. So cost is absolutely reduced when new technologies are coming into the picture. Expanding automation is another 33% of the people throughout the globe says. And why? Everybody in the globe would definitely be happy if their task is just a little bit automated, relieved from the mundane task, relieved from the complexity, use them for a better quality tasks, much more focused on other things of your organization is very much important. Wherever possible, either in whatever parts of your organization, be it operations, be it on security, be it on finance, HR, whatever it's possible for your organization to automate, just expand the automation. And that's when these are the top 5 factors that would definitely drive these transformations among these enterprises in this latest year. And we do also have a lot of other factors, like building up the development capabilities. Yes, we were talking more about the DevOps structure. So how development capabilities have to be improved with the help of new technology. It's just not that push it to the test it and then put it on the live. It's live in the production. There are lots and lots of more things which needs to be understood from the scratch of the code. So that things would definitely help us in as one of the important factors. Likewise, we've got API usage, innovation on the business, and getting the basic things right. There are a few more people who interest that these are the factors. So we are right in a position to understand why there is a need. What are the factors which is moving towards the digital transformation? We could see that there is about 2.1 billion is the projected market size in 2025 for AIOps. By this, we could understand that how this market is evolving, how much importance is that we as organizations have to give for that respective new technology or the process which you want to take about. Because Carlos, Bharani, and Gauri was talking about the importance and the benefits of adapting those. So what are the best ways to adapt that? What are the best things you can achieve when you have those AIOps in your place? But let me tell you, this is something which is a projected market size in just about 3 years from now. Think about how important is that as money. So equals the value it needs to be there in your organization as well. Now let's talk about the role of IT teams in achieving these kind of key strategic outcomes. I personally believe that the heart of any business is their IT team. I definitely think that all of these attendees who are right here today would definitely agree with saying that the heart of the business is the IT team. Because the IT teams are the one who are the firefighters, especially during the pandemic. They were the one who have just adopted all these digital transformation technologies before anyone. Before the end users or the employees even experiencing the better being at home, the IT teams were the 124/7 working to get these new technologies, adapting them, and bringing the best for the organization and a better user experience for the end users and the employees as well. So I personally take this moment for any of the IT administrators who have joined today. I take this moment to thank them for whatever they did for their organization to keep up and running 24/7. So what role they play? That's very important that these IT teams are the ones who take up new tasks, challenges, bring out exceptional customer and employee experiences, as we were talking about. And they are the one who also help us to ensure that the efficient business process flows and collaboration is happening all over the productivity. Let's say, for example, you have a better business flow already in place, but still there is something which needs to be communicated to your fellow employees. Say there is something which is a production server. You have already a planned maintenance, for example, but you wanted to tell them that, hey, don't stop it right now at the moment. Just give me 5 minutes. I've got a couple of more tasks to do that, and then stop it. So the best way nowadays to talk about within the teams is about using any of these communication collaboration tools like Zoho's Click, MS Teams, or anything as such. What if that MS Teams is not active at that particular point of time? It's down at that point of time. You're sending a message that, hey, stop, do not stop the production server, like just say 5 minutes, and you send, hit on click send. And if the message is not sent across, think about the impact of that, which you wanted to really happen. It'll not. So the IT teams are the one who would also have to take care of all these business flows as well, how things have to happen smooth. And there are also few things which is more and more important in today's world. We are talking about system reliability and the performance across the line of business. When we talk about the system reliability, we are talking about more reliable on a particular system, because nowadays everybody is talking about the edge computing. So anyway, you've got a superstore throughout your county, say 5 or 10 or 15 stores throughout that. Each and every store in the county have to be very, very important to monitor their sensors and systems, because then that's how you gauge your business of that particular day. Let's say, for example, you have a production line and say, for example, there is one particular sensor or a server that's very important to keep a track of how many units you have produced in 1 hour of time. Say one particular unit is supposed to be sold for $5, and they say you have 100 units being produced 1 hour of time, which is like $500 is what your production is all about in 1 hour of time. What if that sensor, the just small sensor, is not working as expected? If that has not been properly reported to the respective teams, which is supposed to be, what happens? Think about 1 hour of time, you would just definitely come out with faulty goods, or probably you would end up in losing about $500 an hour. So the IT teams are the one who is just focusing much more on each and individual, sources, the sources of the data which it can collect, which it can send across, and then keep up the business 24/7. For these kind of IT teams, there is a big thing which is today is another challenge. These IT stacks is becoming very, very complex in today's time, because unlike the traditional IT model, earlier we have just very few IT stacks, like say firewall, routers, switches, access points, and endpoints. It's all connected together, then the organization within the perimeter is perfect. But today the stacks are a little bit very, very complex in nature, because we do see that microservices, Kubernetes, containers, SD-WANs, and we could see Wi-Fi 6, much more edge computing as we're talking about. There are lots and lots of new technologies, new vendors, new stacks are coming into the picture today. IT teams really face a hard time in catching up with all these previous challenges. Along with that, they're also in a position to tackle all these new challenges in understanding about how these new stacks are also working. What are the working behavior, working mechanism of these new technologies are? That is also a little bit of a big challenge for the new IT teams today. Managing these kind of complexity is definitely beyond human scale, because it's not only devices, it's different technologies. It's not only different technologies, it's from different vendors on how do they behave as well. So it's not possible that one particular human as an IT administrator would definitely be able to, capture everything out of all these different stacks in the same organization. I think none of your organization would have just only one administrator called IT administrator who would take care of the network, security, virtual server, infra, everything, application, everything. There would just not be only one administrator at that particular point of time in any of the organization, because you definitely do have multiple people in your organization. And handling this complexity is just quite a little bit possible only with well-equipped IT teams, is what I would say. Because we were talking about skills shortage is one of the biggest challenge in today's world, especially after pandemic. People have a flip side on working models. So skill shortage is a big thing. It's nowhere that you are just responsible for only one particular module of your organization. Say you take care of your server, you are in a position also to know more about the application, know more about the security perspective, know more about the containers and microservices as well. So only when you have a well-equipped IT team who has an opportunity to foresee things, which is closely related to the business outcomes as well. It is not that you receive a ticket, say, hey, this critical server is down. You focus on that, troubleshoot that critical server, fix that, and then close the ticket. No, you're also supposed to foresee something which is on the business part as well. That's what we wanted to mean. You could have heard about what happened with Facebook a couple of months back. Say just about 6 hours of time, the Facebook was down, and it cost almost about $7 billion. So as a technician, as an IT team, if you say that you receive a lot of tickets, you receive a lot of tweets from social media that, hey, the Facebook or WhatsApp or Instagram is down, and that you will have to start working with that. Say we all know that that's because of a network configuration change. So you go fix that as a network engineer. The configuration change is being fixed. It would not create a better impact. He has to understand that it cost him, like it cost Facebook that almost about 7 billion USD. So when you know the business outcome of a particular IT problem, it'll be more and more easy for an organization to keep up their pace better, so that the resolution or the focus, the value of the problem solving would be much more easier. For that, what is something which is required? Full stack visibility. Only when you have a complete visibility of your organization without a siloed model, only then you would be able to unlock the pro features of all of your organization's best part. you definitely would have multiple tools in your organization, from application monitoring, infrastructure monitoring, network, and security perspective as well. You would have that. So when you have a full stack visibility of your application level, right from the starting, right from the UI on the website, on the URL, I mean. So right from the front end till the infrastructure, the network connected devices at the back, and the security at the end, or even let's say the port which is connected on a particular network device. Anything on that, only when you have a complete visibility, that's quite possible for a well-equipped IT team to pull this off and have a better correlation on that material. Before we move on to the next part, I would just wanted to have run a quick poll to understand how many of you in your organizations have more than one solution to monitor all of these verticals in one single tool, or more than that. Anybody? Just I would want to run a quick poll and see how many of you are having more than one tool to monitor all of these applications, infrastructure, network, security in one single tool. Murli, I think we can have a poll run right now. All right.
Yeah.
So let's take about a minute to see how much of the people has more than one tool. All right. I could see that most of you, more than about 80% of the people says they do have more than two solutions in their organization to monitor any of these verticals. So I think your organization would definitely be blessed if you have got like one single solution to monitor all of these under one single umbrella. True. So we were talking about IT teams would need a better full stack visibility. What are the key components in achieving this full stack visibility? We are all talking about need of the full stack, but what are the key components? Instrumentation is one, definitely. All we have is instrumentation is almost ready, because we do have monitoring solution in our organization, as you people just have told. You have the instrumentation ready, you have the tools in place. It started to collect its metrics, its logs, events, alerts, notifications, everything is all set. But how well are they correlated within that? So it just definitely need a better correlation between each other, whatever the data which flows in, because today's amount of data which flows in different sources to one particular solution is massive. So how better it correlates the data, give out the better insights. And we were talking about how important the AIOps in today's point becomes the key component, because AIOps is the only one thing which would help us in achieving a better getting or achieving a better insights from whatever the data being collected, because the data is huge. It's definitely not possible for a human to understand what it is. So AIOps kind of technologies, the ML engine is the one to go place for all of us to get better insights for what we are talking about. And another key component for that is to incident response. So when you have a better instrumentation, a tool in place which has correlation properly done with the help of the AIOps as a technology, you have a proper response, incidences being raised. Whatever be the problem is, if there is an incident being raised, it has to have its own capability either to solve by itself in real quick, or it has to reach out to the respective technicians with better proper solutions, suggestions, recommendations, and then that can be solved out real quick. And these are the top 4 key components where you must have in any of your tools or in your organization to have the full stack visibility. And let's now see what Gartner talks about AIOps. Gartner defines that AIOps as a solution that combines big data and machine learning functionality to support all of the primary IT operation functions. It's not only we talk about the complex operations needs AIOps, even for the primary IT functions, even it be the lowest of the lowest. Let's say you just wanted to automate, say power on a VM or power off a VM. even that can also be automated by any of these possible use cases you have got in your organization. AIOps will definitely help those use cases as well. And it also talks about this, it should be in a possible way have to scalable ingestion and analysis of an ever increasing volume, variety, and velocity of data generated by these IT stacks. When we talk about scalable ingestion, yes, the data which flows in from different sources, as we're talking about, is massive. It has to ingest all these data, either how much ever of data it gets in. It has to be scalable by itself and give you the proper insights. We're talking about the volume of data because of the too much of IT stacks in your organization, right from edge computing, little bit small sensors you've got, which has its own data to be populated. The volume becomes very massive. And the variety of data, yes, because of different stacks we have got in place, the data are from different ways, different modes, different models, and the velocity of the data which flows in from the source to the solution is fast. It's at the lightning speed. So handling all these type of data generated by the IT stacks has to be properly, sorted, parsed, correlated to bring out the better. That's what Gartner is defining about AIOps. So now let's talk about why should you leverage AIOps to manage your IT infrastructure. So why are we doing this at the first place? AIOps definitely helps all of the IT organizations to shift from reactive to proactive IT ops. That's what Carlos, Gauri, and everybody is talking about today. How do you shift from reactive mode to proactive mode? Even we were talking about, let's say any of you in your organization be it e-commerce website, say for example. So you run a business as a website, and that website is about to get live somewhere on the Black Friday or on the Christmas. And then you could have definitely anticipated that the amount of the people who sign into your website, who gets into the website, the number of requests which is getting into the website would be a little bit huge. Probably you could have think about a certain number. What if that number is beyond what you anticipated? Say 1,000 people would check in, 1,000 people would sign up on that particular day. What if it becomes 5,000? At that particular point of time, if your website is not able to handle all these transactions, all 5,000 transactions at that moment of time when a website is live, think about all the other 4,000 people who would end up in receiving error messages on their screens. Definitely we lose business at that particular point of time. Being reactive at that point is of no use. We lost the business already. The revenue is lost. The reputation is lost. Being reactive is nowhere possible at that point. We have to be in a position to adapt to new technologies like the focused one we are talking about, AIOps, and that's when you have to be proactive. That AIOps is the one which will help us being proactive as well. And it also helps to achieve the strategic outcomes much more faster than what we think of. Even Carlos was talking about, we are a little bit slow in today's pace. How he talks about when internet came into the picture, and now how there is no more internet division in any of the organization. Likewise, AIOps would definitely be in the future, and that's why we are talking about in today's focus. So it will definitely help in achieving those much more faster, and definitely it helps to eliminate the complexity in very varied distributed environments. This could be something which you have to think about why you should leverage. Also, there is something, over 50% of the businesses have either fully or begin implementing the AI into their workflow. We were talking today about now, if you are thinking that AIOps is not needed for my organization, I'm not much aware of what AIOps can do. I think we just definitely have to come up in the ladder to understand what AIOps is. All the competitors, peers, friends in the organizations who is running the same business are adapting to that particular model. If we wanted to keep up the market share, as Carlos have told, and we could see the numbers here, over 50% of businesses already fully enabled or begin to enable that. So we are in a position to leverage AIOps to manage these ITs. And let's see how these business leaders are leveraging. We saw why that is a requirement. Let's see now let's listen to the leaders of how leaders are thinking about leveraging the AIOps. Leaders say that the productivity have highly increased through the automation. Almost about 44% of the leaders have told that. And it also helped the leaders to improve decision making. Definitely, as Gauri was talking about, human in the loop. AI is definitely not going to be a replacement for the humans. It's just going to be an assistance to the human who is already in the loop to take decisions much more faster. When he was talking about explainable AI, when AI is much more explainable, humans are the one who would take decisions. When AI becomes more and more explainable, humans would just definitely take decisions much more faster. So that has already been improved, is what 41% of people talks about. And 40% of the leaders say improve in the customer experience. Definitely, because we are now in a position with AI ops to gauge how the customer experience is with various metrics, various parameters, like aptX score of a website and much more. So those are something which is quite possible. So definitely it improves the customer experience as well. So when we put that into one single triangle, say it would definitely help the leaders say that it enhanced their decision making capabilities. It transformed their business from what it was, and it is modernized their all systems in the new age as well. So all are interlinked together, and that's how the leaders are focused, and that's how the leaders are looking forward as. And now let's see how you as IT administrators are about to leverage these AI ops in your day-to-day IT operations in your organization. So what is the best thing which we would be able to receive from AI in the focus? We would definitely be able to forecast things in future, like the one we were talking about as an example. If you've got a website which is about to be live in the Black Friday, and you anticipated just 1,000 and people, 5,000 people are coming in. If you have got AI in that particular picture, AI would have been in a place to help you forecast that how data would be. So we've got all these historical data which could help before that hit into the production. So AI can help you in the forecasting material. And it can also help you with the correlating all the events with a lot of events which is passing in, and help you crunch that all of these data into one particular point and help you with the root cause of that as well. So we would definitely not miss that particular signal from huge noise which is created. We would definitely also get some business intelligence, business insights from the analytics, where AI ops with a lot of amount of the data, it would definitely help us in the insights also. Anomaly detection, outage prediction is something which is very much more focused with the help of the AI, because very minute changes in the anomaly changes which would maybe as an anomaly would not be found with the help of the human. So AI would definitely help to find out an anomaly if there is something with large amount of the data being processed. Outage prediction, yes, we would learn the pattern of how things have happened in the past, how things are happening currently at this moment, and how possible the things can be with the help of the AI, with all amount of the data it has. And it would definitely help us to predict the outage, and outage being very well known about how much it can cost for a company when the company organization went on an outage. And on the other side, as we were talking about, automation is something which would make people happy, make people, when any of the tasks has been reduced, and employees would definitely be happy on the part. So AI would definitely be a friend at that point and help us automation. Say if you're talking about a storage, and if the storage is about to be full in next 12 hours of time, AI can just read out how it was with the pattern, and it can tell us, hey, this particular storage would be full in next 12 hours of time. Do you want me to take action on that? Say yes, being a human in the loop, just say yes, and then AI would take care of that, go beyond that, and then say scale up that particular storage for you automatically, just in a matter of minutes or seconds. So that's how these are something which you've got to keep focus on, and you as IT administrators have to focus in leveraging that for your day-to-day operations. Let's take up a quick example of how things would have happened before AI ops, and why is there a need to adapt that in the right time. Let's say we've got John right here, who is a sales executive, who is getting all the leads, and then he is about to push that into the CRM to check how many of them are deals, how many of them are for which region. He wanted to segregate that leads from that particular CRM tool, and that's the end of the quarter for per se. So that's very important for John, being a sales executive, to hit his number, hit his target. So at that point of time, when he's trying to get into the CRM and he's trying to upload and click submit, it doesn't work. It keeps loading and loading forever. So he's a little bit frustrated at that point. He's just reaching out to the IT support staff and IT support staff to understand, is there a problem being reported of the same before? He would go through a couple of more tickets of these sort. Is that something which has happened before? Let's think, if that seems to be a Friday evening at 5 o'clock, who would definitely be happy to receive that ticket, which seems to be an emergency ticket? Nobody. Even me would definitely not be happy enough to receive an emergency ticket at 5 o'clock in the evening on a Friday. So even at the same case, IT support staff would take much more time, at least 2-3 hours of time to understand what the end user is reporting about, where the problem is, filter that out. If he's not able to per se find it out, moving on to the operations lead to say, hey, this is what had happened. And John is very, very frustrated. It's very important for John to pull that report right today itself, as it's about to be the end of the quarter. Operations lead would again take a couple of more time to understand where the problem is, reach out to all their peers and colleagues to understand where the problem is. At one point of time, if it leads to the development side, and then the development team might have just let us know that, hey, we have made a small code change in the application last night, and then probably that is because of this. So what would be your position at this point of time, being a sales executive unable to hit the number at the end of the quarter? Say it would definitely take at least 3-4 hours of time to find the problem. Just solving up, but just finding the problem, it would take 3-4 hours of time in today's time without AIOps in the picture. But what if AIOps is in place of your organization? Definitely AIOps would not even let John face this problem. It would be proactive in that particular case. It could have analyzed prior, and if there is something which is a code change which is supposed to be changed by the development leads on the other side, it could have automatically told us, hey, this might be an impact, so make sure this is all checked, that is supposed to be worked with. It could have sent out instant notifications to any of those, already fixed that before John wants to upload anything on that. So that's how important AIOps in today's world, to save a lot of time, save a lot of whatever we call it for a better of the organization. That would definitely be saved with the dear friend AIOps. Let's take a quick look behind the scenes. So we were talking about John, pushing out all these, lead to the CRM, the number of the request, as in the number of time in minutes. So after he checks into this shift, John would keep pushing out all his leads into that. That would be an increasing pattern, exponential pattern of getting the data into that particular CRM. Only when there is AI in picture, it's quite very easy for us to identify the problem. If in this case the problem lies in the failed transactions because of an exception which is triggered because of a faulty code which is pushed last night, correct? So if at all, if this has not been found, it's very difficult. Will we be able to identify any of the anomalous behavior in right quick minute? Probably, let's say this is the number of the requests, it goes exponentially. We would definitely not be in a position as humans to identify if there is this minute, the tiniest change as an anomaly. So we could see there is a small change. Probably we may not be able to find it right now at this moment, but AI is the right one who would help us to break down these different components of the sensory data. It will break down each and individual seasonal trend or data or the pattern, or however the data has to be broke down, and then it will help us to find where the exact smallest of the small anomaly is. Even the minute, the tiniest anomaly have to be found out. So that would definitely not be one of the causes for your organization which is going out for a toss at any point of time. We cannot take the tiniest anomaly as granted. Even the smallest anomaly is an anomaly. We have to treat that as an anomaly. So AI is the only thing which can help us to identify that. What are the benefits if we leverage AIOps in our organization for a day-to-day IT operations perspective? It would definitely predict all the anomalies which happens, analyze those patterns of all of the data which is jumping. It will crunch all those data patterns, help us analyze those while factoring the dynamic adjustments. Because just as AI just digesting all data from variety of sources, giving out an information that, hey, this is the problem, it's not quite very important in today's point of time. Even Gauri was talking about how ManageEngine has a problem when we predefined some of the thresholds. Later, we wanted to dynamically change the thresholds as per the data which is learned in the previous 3 weeks of time. So dynamic adjustments is quite very important, and that's one of the biggest benefits you would gain from AIOps when you leverage it in for your organization. It would also help you to eliminate the noise, and it's zero in on the fault domain rapidly. So it would definitely eliminate the noise, because you would definitely not miss the signal in the noise when AIOps is in the picture. It would also help you derive actionable insights via log, snapshot, or traces in infrastructure without any manual intervention. Manual intervention would definitely be reduced in most of the cases, because AIOps being in the picture, as Gauri was talking about, it would help you relearn any of the feedback which is given by the end user itself, and manual intervention may not be needed. It will taken care by itself. It'll give you better insights. It will change by itself. It will adapt like a chameleon to whatever it needs to be and give you better solution. And another benefit is execute automated remediation. Like you can just take out scripts, workflows, or any type of remediation you wanted to talk about. Roll back something which if you find that seems to be a problem or an anomaly, you have something in place already. So whenever that seems to be found out, something has to be rolled out, which is a baseline of the trusted material which you have got, and it can help you roll out those things if something happens. And it would also help you receive a better reports of service impact analysis. If a particular business service is impacted, AI would just not tell you that, hey, this service has an impact. It will tell you about a complete analysis of what happened, why this has happened. We would get you a better, perfect analysis of why this has happened in the same plane. So you would understand, okay, because of this is one particular reason, okay, my service has a great impact today. So it will definitely help humans to take a better decisions at that point. That these are top benefits you would be definitely able to leverage. Now let's talk about a sample architecture or a roadmap in achieving the full stack visibility for a better and seamless IT operations of your organization. The first point we're talking all about is full stack visibility. Let's say be it on the cloud, on-premise, private cloud, public cloud, any of that. Any layer of your organization, be it application layer, infrastructure, network layer, security layer, and any of the business costs associated with the business impact associated to any of these layers, when that being put together from an instrumentation perspective, you get all these data right here, push them, all these events, notifications, alerts, data, push them into the AI ML engine. The ML engine would be capable enough to understand. The AI would jump into the picture, help you alert better, prepare unified dashboards which has greater insights. It will give you better and better recommendations and suggestions to how to solve the problem. And this data analysis engine, with the help of API or webhook or any of those, means it can just connect to find out RCA and help you orchestrate some automation in that picture. So this is when we talk about automation, it can be of anything as said. So it can be resource scaling, resource scaling to up or down. Say if there is a storage, as we were talking about, I would just wanted to quote the same example. Your website being live on the Black Friday seems to have 5,000 people coming in at that particular point of time. The resource has to be scaled up. Probably after 3 or 4 weeks of time, the traffic on that particular website would definitely be low after that particular sale or after that being live. So it has to automatically scale down the resources which is needed for that particular server or on the business servers. So these are something which automatically can be taken care into account. So these orchestration can also happen with the help of automation. So it's just that when you have full stack given to the hands of artificial intelligence or an ML engine, which is really proper, which has a better features and functionalities and algorithms, it will help you in a better orchestration and automation. Get to the feedback of that particular same material, keep enriching that particular data model, and it will definitely help you for a better organizational benefits. That's a sample architecture we're talking about right here. Let's take a simple scenario of an online transaction being failed by a customer of a leading bank. This happened a couple of months back in India. So there's one of the very leading banks. So we were unable to log on to the internet portal of that particular website to have any transaction being processed at that point of time. I think that's the same kind of a case we were talking about right now. They could have expected about, like, say 10,000 logins per day, say per hour or so, but the logins were like huge. More, at least I think I've read somewhere about it's 2x 3x amount of the people have logged in at the same time. I think one particular problem, right, we see here is because of high transaction volume and poor capacity planning. They do not have a better capacity planning at that point of time, because they did not expect that the pandemic would hit at that point of time, and pandemic have increased the usage of UPIs or increased the usage of internet transactions, because everybody were at home. Anything we wanted to get it is through online. We had a payment via online. Online payment is the only mode of transaction we had at that time, almost for more than 1 year of time. So they do not expect that. The poor capacity planning led into the situation of a biggest problem, and that's one of the leading banks we're talking about. And another problem is they might be in a requirement of more and more servers or deployment of containers at that point. And I think they've never reviewed their existing processes of their capacity of its solutions, payment gateways, or network part of it at that point. That's a very poor review of those processes, and that could have been a problem. It hit on their bank, and it took for a toss of their reputation and much more. We're still talking about it. It happened almost about 6-7 months back, but people around the IT industry are still talking about, hey, that bank has this problem almost about 7 months back. Once the name gone for a task, it would just stay for a longer time. Cannot regain the reputation back in a very short time. And that's the greatest impact, because building up an empire of your organization would very huge time to build that up. But going for a toss is real simple. But AI would definitely be in a place, at least help you out to solve these problems before it going out for a toss. Full stack monitoring with AI powered forecasting technologies in place, which can help you scale up or scale down those, and per se it can help you save the cost as well. If AIOps were one of these technologies were placed in that particular leading bank, it could definitely not happen, because it could have automatically scaled up or scaled down, forecasted, let us know that, hey, this is how the trend of people who is logging in day by day. So I think in next some few weeks, definitely the transaction, the amount of the people who log in would be high. So people in the IT team could have definitely be aware of what could have happened in the future. So this is how it could have definitely be saved. AIOps being our friend today, it could have definitely be saved at that point of time. We're talking about now on how ManageEngine ITOM solutions can help you with these full stack AI enabled solutions, right? Starting from your application, gaining visibility of your application right from the URL till the transaction happens at the backend. You wanted to monitor your infrastructure, right? Starting from your heartbeat of the device, the health, the performance metrics, talk about the network on its bandwidth analysis or traffic shaping policies, security in terms of firewall analysis, any attacks which it could possibly happen. You wanted to understand the VPN transactions of your organization, or you wanted to know more about the automation where you wanted to have your webhooks, your workflows, your scripts to be automated at any point of time, and you want to get a better insights of business intelligence reports with the help of analytics. It's all quite possible with the help of ManageEngine sort of solution. Let us take another few minutes to talk about what are all the IT sort of products, IT operation management sort of products from ManageEngine. Op Manager is one solution, the parent solution from ManageEngine in the perspective of IT operations, which is an agentless solution, and it's an on-premise solution. It's just a lightweight exe where you just have to install on a server, and that server does not require much of the resources. It will not take much of your resources. Just when that is installed, we would be able to talk to the devices with any of the communication protocols, say SNMP, WMI, SSH, any of the communication protocols, get to talk to that, get the information like performance metrics and much more. The only requirement is the device has to be reachable from the on-premise server, and it has to be having any of these communication protocols, be it any vendor or any model of the device. No matter what type of device it is, we do support any of these devices across, being it network device, physical device, virtual devices. Any of these can quite be possibly monitored with that. We have got application monitors, application manager exclusively designed for monitoring your applications, where we would be able to in a position to discover the applications. Say you have got a JBoss application which need to be discovered, keep an eye on, keep monitoring that. Just providing a couple of more details on the Java or the JBoss application, it can help you discover the dependency of that applications, like what server that is being installed on. It would automatically be discovered. What database it has connected to, if it's a MS SQL server. So when you just provide the Java application or the JBoss application, it will automatically map the dependency of the application, and at one single shot, it will help you discover all that at one point of time. It can also help you monitor the databases, be it MS SQL, MySQL, PGSQL, Cassandra, Mongo, any type of database we're talking about, we would be able to help you monitor. If it's MS SQL Server, for example, we would tell you that this particular query which runs on an MS SQL is the one which takes so much of time. We are in a position to tweak this MS SQL query, and that's how we would be able to monitor and get the better possibilities from that database. We also have end user experience We'll be able to monitor the real-time user experience. We would be able to have a synthetic transaction monitoring where we come back to the same example of that particular website. You wanted to see how that particular website is performing in US, in UK, in Asia, in other parts of the world. You can just have agents installed across these and then see how it is performing from different regions of the world. And you've got much more in terms of ERPs, middlewares, clouds, much more. We do have another solution called NetFlow Analyzer, where NetFlow Analyzer is the one which is all about network bandwidth monitoring, traffic shaping. It would help you to understand how the bandwidth is. It will tell you about which source to which destination on which protocol, which port, what amount of the traffic is being utilized at that particular point of time. That is all possible with the help of the tool. You can shape the traffic, create QoS policies, write ACLs from the tool itself to shape the traffic for your business critical applications than the non-business critical applications. Quite possible to do that right from the NetFlow Analyzer. And we've got Network Configuration Manager, where this is a very simple tool to use, where this is helpful for you to take up the configuration backup of your startup and running configurations of all your network devices. Check out the firmware vulnerabilities which is reported by the vendor, by the other ones of that particular version. You can also upgrade your firmwares at one single shot to all of these devices. Check the components of the devices, which is standard policies across the globe, say Cisco's iOS policy, SOX policy, HIPAA policy, and much more. Or you would have your own policy which is there in your organization. You want to check that out. Say Cisco's iOS policy, say SNMP community strings should not be public. Likewise, you have something on your own as say none of your network devices should have a password as admin at 123. If that's a policy in your organization, create a policy at one single go. Push that to all your network devices. Check how many of those devices are as such. Check that devices, because admin at 123 is the one culprit who would just be the breach for the security aspects of your company. So just check that out. Make sure that is being caught, and then change those passwords as well. Firewall Analyzer, exclusively designed for firewalls. Any type of firewall, be it Juniper, Cisco, Fortinet, Palo Alto, Checkpoint, any of these type of firewalls, much more firewalls, we would be able to check on the VPN reports, how many of them are logged in at this particular point of time, what is the usage of the traffic, what possible attacks might happen, what are the possible viruses which could come across through the firewalls. We would also be able to learn the rules, policies of those firewalls, give you a recommendation, say that, hey, this particular rule of the firewall, say rule number 10, is supposed to be moved to rule number 1, so that the performance of that firewall can be improved to 50%. Quite possible to let you know that also. And there are much more features along with Firewall Analyzer to understand the employees' internet usage, the number of hits on a particular website. Say your company is not supposed to have YouTube accessed by your employees. So if there is someone who is trying to hit YouTube for more than 5 times, more than 10 times, it will let you know that this is the employee with its name and IP address, tell you that this is a blocked URL which is trying to hit for a number of times. You can understand much more from the firewall. One other tool we've got is oputils. This is a very simple tool where it will help you not to track down your spreadsheets or run through the cables to understand where that switch port, which device is connected. Simple tool just will let you know, scan the subnet. It will tell you which IP address is connected to which port of the switch, what MAC address that particular IP address holds, what type of device it is. On the other side, you want to track down a switch port, you understand which switch it is, just go to the switch port. It will tell you which IP address is connected to this particular MAC address, what type of device it is, and things like that. It also helps you understand the rogue devices. Say, if I come into your office for a training of any of the ManageEngine's IT operations sort of solutions, I stay in your office for 3 days. I connect to your network. You, network administrators, can decide whether I, being in your office, can be a guest or a rogue or a trusted MAC address of your organization. You decide that at the point. Tool would immediately tell you that this is a new MAC address being found. If you already have list of MAC addresses of your organization, all of your machines which is properly purchased, corporate purchase devices, all that MAC addresses can be whitelisted at the first part. Any of new MAC addresses being found, it can be identified as rogue. We have the opportunity in the tool itself to block the switch port right from the tool itself, rather not taking the terminal of the tool. Just from the tool itself, you block the switch port. And that's quite possible for ManageEngine Op utils. So all of these at one single point called Op Manager Plus. One single exe, you would get everything right here and under one single roof. You get Op Manager, NetFlow Analyzer, Firewall, Application, Op utils, configuration, everything under one single pane of glass itself. You would be able to find it with one single exe being installed called Op Manager Plus. It's nowhere that you have got to run across, jump between UIs. It's all under the same UI itself. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about, what ManageEngine offers. And there are a few rewards and recognitions which I wanted to gladly share with all of you. Where one of that is about Gartner. We have got Transformation Leadership Awards of 2022 and software reviews. We've been tagged as champion. Almost about 98% of the users love Op Manager. Even in one of the questions we have got received when Gauri and Carlos was talking about from Douglas, that how he loved ManageEngine in terms of IT operation tool set. So that's the recognitions. Some of our valued customers I would share you with. And I think we are almost at the end of the presentation at this moment. And I would take this time and thank you all for that being here. And I think the session was informative and you've gained some insights about AIOps. And let's get connected with the LinkedIn's ManageEngine ITOM page to get more insights. I think we might have to go towards questions. And I think Murali Sairam can take up and then let me know if you've got any questions to be answered from the attendees.
Someone has asked what kind of licenses are there for an organization to choose from.
Okay, so when we talk about the licensing model of ManageEngine IT toolset, is we were talking about multiple tools right here. We were talking about Op Manager, we were talking about NFA, NCM, and Firewall, and much more as you could see here. Say you wanted to monitor only the configuration of your network devices, and you wanted to monitor only the firewall of your organization. Along with that, you want just the infrastructure monitoring, not about NetFlow. So you want only 3 of them, definitely quite possible. We have got a very easy customizable, licensing model where you can pick and choose what you want. You can just choose infra, you can just choose configuration and the firewall, all 3 together at how many devices you wanted to have it. Possibly you can mix and match and have one single license as per your requirement, quite possible.
Okay, perfect. Have one question from Jonathan. AIOps, is it a concept that is built into Op Manager? I think you just answered the question towards the end of the presentation.
Okay, so the question about is AIOps a concept that is built into Op Manager and other tool set from ManageEngine from Jonathan. To answer that question, even Gauri was talking about not as a platform, ManageEngine as a vendor. We try our best. We think that as an ideal solution to offer AIOps as a feature in the product itself. Not even as an extra cost, I suppose. Like it's as a feature itself in the products from ManageEngine, especially from Op Manager, like the one you've got adaptive thresholds. Adaptive thresholds is released in the latest versions where that doesn't need any extra cost to be any bared by the customer. It's not a feature we release with the AI as a concept, AI as a feature inside the product from the ManageEngine itself.
Okay, perfect. So with that, we come to the end of the super insightful ITOM Day virtual conference. Thanks to all the attendees for staying throughout the course of it. As soon as we end the session, you will be getting a feedback prompt on the screen. Please share your thoughts on how the event went. If you have any further questions, do drop us an email on virtual events, VIRTUAL, virtual events @manageengine.com for us to address them. With that, we are signing off for the day. Thank you once again. Thanks for joining. Yeah. Cheers. Bye-bye.